Live from PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live post-war calling show, hearing your first-hand accounts and war stories of battles from the previous conflict. So join the Discord right now through the link below. Hop in the general voice channel and get ready to share your stories. And now, your host, 9-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
All right. Gentlemen, hear me?
Aye. Yes.
That's great. Well, apparently we can't be seen here on the radio, but that's all right. I'll fidget with the widgets as we go along. But welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps here in the post-38 world. The 38th conflict has come to a close. Lots of developments. The return of armor in mass. The return of the full conquest map, and Wardens just can't get it together. How many times are they going to lose to the Colonials? I don't know.
I mean, I'd argue they lost every time they.
Every time they what?
Every time they won a war, they lost a little bit of something.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you could say that each time they won, more people thought that they have to try to win.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
There we are. But, yes, joined here today by PressCorps' very own Kovac and Mothman. Kovac, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing quite all right. Mothman?
I am present, accounted for, and I want to go home. Oh wait, I'm here.
Yeah, it's been busy. It's been busy for all of us here in the Corps. But I'll tell you what, it's been real busy, even busier out on the field. And we've even got a looping video of just exactly what went down here, provided by FoxholeStats.com. FoxholeStats.com brought to you by Hayden. Just a wealth of statistical knowledge and all sorts of helpful things. Certain statistics I didn't even know I needed, like this recap of the war, which you can download as an MP4, as well as just kind of casually shows there on the website. Fantastic. As well as Hayden was so nice of him to provide us with event log for our broadcast here in the regular music broadcast, which we might get into a little bit later. But in terms of other goings alongs here in the Foxhole War, we've also got the Foxhole Competition League. I always want to say community, but that's just what they gave me. FCL S&P won their match this weekend. I don't even know who took place in the other matches. Gentlemen, didn't even manage to catch the game this past Saturday.
No, unfortunately, I was at work.
Yeah,
they're
3 hours long. They're real gambits. So I don't know if any of them have really gone the full thing. Well, I guess some of them have gone overtime. I don't know. I think we've talked about that before, where maybe 2 hours. Not quite sure. But regardless, that's about as much FCL coverage as we can muster here. But in the meantime, we'll be going to your calls shortly. Make sure to join in through the Discord channel. Discord link below. Join the lounge chat button, the call queue. We might just get to your calls tonight. We might not get any calls tonight because, again, this was called last second, as is usual. But that's quite all right. That's quite all right. Gentlemen, what do you think about the amount of armor that is just rolled out once again onto the battlefield? Too much, or is it welcome back?
Plenty. Perfect.
Perfect, you think?
Yes.
It is a welcome change, I'll admit. Seeing
tired
that
of
much
this.
armor on the field.
Tired of combat.
How much do you think? How fast did they come out? How long until armor came out? About 4 days? Maybe longer than that, 6 days.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's probably around the last 4 or 5 days of the war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they came up pretty fast, faster than usual. I don't know if Hayden has any stats. I don't think he has stats on tech, but I feel like they came out faster than usual. That might have been everyone just teching so fast because they were so desperate to get the tanks out, or it might have been just Kronos doing his thing by himself, essentially. But we'll have to find out exactly what the numbers are behind that. We actually have a caller here today, Nocturne of the Swords of Morrow. Nocturne, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Yes, hello, Nocturne. Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Not at the moment, but I do have to say that was a pretty good war, pretty long war, interesting war, for it to say.
What did Som do? What did Som do this past here in the 38th?
Let's see here.
I'm sure there's a whole
start
host of
off-
things. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So mostly it was organized logistical operations in the back line. That's what the main bulk of the main operations took place. At the later half of the war is when combat actually kicked off and main pushes started to happen.
Mm-hmm. Any large armor columns from the Swords of Morrow?
Yes, there were some in Ogmarin, mostly as a attempted attack to take the town. Didn't really work out so well, so instead everyone went to a reaching track.
And did Som pick up any new members, any new recruits?
As I know of, two. Yes.
There you go.
So, and they're apparently new players to the game as well, so more people.
That's
always
always
good.
the best. That is always the best. I absolutely love it. But yeah, actually, you know what? Let's go into that. I'm curious. The new player experience. If you didn't have anything else for us, the new player experience. What do you think it was like for them? For those two unnamed, if they shall remain unnamed, recruits. How new were they? Like, were they completely unranked?
Not unranked, but just low ranked. I believe one was unranked.
Sure. And then you picked them up?
But more like they tagged along in the operations and they saw what we were doing and they got interested, and here we are now.
Mm-hmm. And what are their ranks now? Or did they really go up in rank that much?
Not that I didn't really keep track of what their ranks were
Sure,
now.
that's fine. You think they had a hard time actually getting into how things operated? Any common complaints that you noticed?
I guess some of the more complaints that I might have saw were kind of the flexibility of logistics in a way. I guess you can call it. Some regions having some things, not other things, so people were of course confused about that. Saw a lot of that in world chats. People asking, "Hey, where's the refinery in this region? I'm in Deadland. There should be one right here, right?" Everyone's like, "No, not at all."
The more I think about it, the more I really don't like world chat, or just the chat box in general. But I guess that's just me.
Why do you say that?
Just well, I mean, other than the fact that it's not really refined, just the mechanic itself, the fact that you can't, turn off all chat, right? You can't have the other faction shut up. You kind of have to just watch it and turn into a cesspool of just people arguing or spam.
You can disable your side's all chat, I believe.
Is that true? Wait, what? Wait. You can disable your side's all chat.
But yeah, you can disable all chat in general.
But just in
like
general.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say, like, that'd be hilarious if you could just turn off your team's all chat, but not the enemy's team.
The equivalent of stuffing earplugs
on one ear. Okay, I wasn't aware of that actually. That might have been new, or that might have been there the whole time. But regardless, I don't know. I feel like I think I've gone on this. I think I've said it on this show multiple times. But I don't know. It's just really weird. There's this convenient chat for a game that prides itself on having everything be tactile. It's weird that there's this chat box that provides you instantaneous and wide-reaching communications with everyone at any given time. Like, that is unheard of in the history of warfare. But here we are. I don't know.
I guess you can say it's kind of like radio communications, except
Except everyone.
Everything's coming in crystal clear instead of just pieces like this.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that people don't have microphones. Personally, I don't know how you play this game without a microphone. But I understand that is a thing that people have. That is a situation people find themselves in. But yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. But I always imagine it'd be cool if you were driving, specifically for logistics or any truckers as well out there. I always thought it'd be interesting how if you had a radio in the vehicle, and again, I've talked about this before in many other outlets, but if you had a radio in the vehicle, you were driving with your WASD keys, and then with the mouse, you could use a radio to call into stockpiles, call into other truckers, call into other people, and so in a way, it's even more efficient than typing it out, and a lot cleaner, so you don't even have to deal with that with the chat and all that. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't want text chat. Anyway, Nocturne, I've kind of gone off in several different directions. Did you have anything else for us here other than Sam's activities?
Let's see. Not entirely. Maybe just actually one thing towards the radio programs in general, or the radio shows.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is they are, so far, pretty, the most interesting thing I've seen for the aspect of the outside lore of the game. Just kind of, I guess you can say the player base kind of sticking on to their own story, and yet it's loose enough that it can be considered canon, but not so that the devs can just say it's not canon at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly how we approached it. So you were talking about the radio dramas, right? I'm assuming Bureau of Occult Warfare is the latest one. Episode 2 coming out tomorrow as of this recording. But yeah, that's a great one. And yeah, Commander Rod, all credit to him so far for pretty much all the radio dramas we have. There are more being worked on, workshopped here in this Discord. And we'll see where they go. If you're interested in participating in a radio drama, either as an actor or a writer, a voice actor or a writer, then please join the Discord, PressCorps Discord, through the link below, and just ping a member of the PressCorps or ping the PressCorps in general, and let us know. But yeah, Nocturne, if you're interested, don't hesitate. But yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure about my acting abilities, but I can try and write.
That's okay. You can be a generic voice actor, just kind of background.
Watch plenty of old movies.
Yeah, talk like that. But yeah, thank you so much. I'll make sure to pass on that thanks to Commander Rodder when he watches this. He's been the leader on that. He's actually, I think, he's our stage director. He's an artiste. I think he has union dues. But anything else for us here, Nocturne?
Not entirely. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, no, thank you for being our first guest tonight. I didn't know if we were going to get anyone, but hey, thanks for stopping by. Duly appreciate it. Good luck on the 39th. Any plans for the 39th that you can reveal? Can you talk on behalf of the entire Swords of Morrow and relay us the plans for the 39th?
I can say that it might be more of the same. We might change things. We never know. There are people listening in. We can't reveal too many secrets.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's about as clear cut as I was expecting. Nocturne, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. All right, let's see. Got plenty of others. Avitus might be coming up next, although there are other people in the call queue. We do have an official call queue. So I don't want to break it quite yet. But talking about upcoming things for the PressCorps, in the meantime, may just want to keep an eye out for future broadcasts, future long-form broadcasts, as well as more radio dramas, and maybe some more flavor as well. Mothman, I noticed we can't reveal what they are yet, but you've been getting to work there with the recordings there in the internal chat. Thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. I anytime I get to flex my muscles a little bit, it's always a pleasure.
And Kovac, as always, for those who don't know, Kovac has been our trusty editor and writer for all the press releases, as well as for the various wars, and pretty much that's a running history. It seems like it's a thankless job, and for the most part it kind of is, but I'm thanking him right now, because this is a running history. So when we look back on this in about 100 wars or so, it's going to be really cool to look back on, and hopefully as things pick up the pace. We just got a new writer here at the PressCorps. Hopefully, if things pick up the pace, we can see, we can formalize more of that into something a lot cooler. But Kovac, thanks.
I am. It's a word. For an editor, I have a terrible vocabulary.
Well,
you are extremely pleased and glad, Kovac. Say it. Say it right.
I am happy.
There you go.
It's a little harder. I understand. It's a little harder to talk, using that mass vocabulary than it is behind a typewriter. Harder. All right. Anyway, we'll go on to our next guest here, the one that at least is in the lounge channel we have available to us. 82DK's Avitus, welcome back to the show. Another long-time caller. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, it's good to be here, guys.
Absolutely. Hey, you got any questions, comments, or concerns? War stories about the 38th conflict?
Well, I do have a little bit of a war story.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you guys saw the colourful letter that the Colonial Command sent our guys in Allbreaker, I believe. That
I did not. I did not. Can you describe this to us, or can you share any piece of media for it?
I can try and find it if
Sure.
you just give me a sec.
For those who aren't aware, if you're looking back on this from a later date, 82DK is known as one of the bigger, if not the biggest, regiment on the Warden side, if not the Foxhole War as a whole. Avitus, do you share leadership responsibilities, or are you up there?
I'm.
We've gone over this before.
Yeah, I'm one of the 3 infantry commanders.
All right.
Because we've got three infantry sections. I'm one of the officers in charge of infantry, but I'm not really high command.
Sure.
High command is handled by 3 individuals. So I'll just put it in general text there if you want to take a look. But the
I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, the Colonial Command sent us this colourful letter, and it was as we read it, we thought it was quite humorous because we don't surrender, not to colonials. We don't.
I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this here for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feel free to interject. Message from Colonial Command, Mercy Valley Operations Commander to Warden Commanders. Salutations. It has come to the attention of Colonial Commanders at MVOC that Stone Cradle will soon fall under total control of the Legion. At this time, having seen the bravery and tenacity of the Sievish military stands toe-to-toe with the might of the Legion, that we are prepared to offer clemency to the now surrounded Wardens occupying Allbreaker Isles. To this end, we are prepared to offer your men, safe passage through Stone Cradle, free from harassment from all colonial forces in the area. Should this offer be refused, we are prepared to strike your positions with every man, boat, tank, and artillery piece we have at our disposal in order to dislodge you from your positions until you agree to these terms or are destroyed. You have 48 hours to decide your fate. At the end of this period, we will have no other recourse than to attack you with the mighty power of Legion tanks. Do not squander this opportunity. Respectfully yours, Mbach Commander, under the direction of Colonial High Command. An intense letter. My goodness. Avitus, how did you respond?
Well, I just put my response under that. Obviously, we did squander the opportunity, like good wardens, and they didn't lie. They came at us with everything they had. They came at us with numerous tank sections and attempted to attack Ogmaran, which was our main stockpile. Now, if you don't know, every Saturday, 82DK has a huge operation that our logistics prepare for days, so we can throw a lot of resources at one location at the same time. Now, if these stockpiles fell before the end of the war, then we wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. But we managed to get enough people online to defend it. There's a video up on the 80 Seconds YouTube channel that can basically show you how the colonial attack on Ogmaran went for them, and how many tanks that they lost attempting to take our stockpiles. And then the next day, when we got the stuff out of our stockpiles and actually had our operation, we pushed the colonials out of the map. We then went into the next map and pushed them right back to a town. But unfortunately, when we were attacking the town, we ran into a mortar house, and that mortar house, I have to say, whoever was manning it, absolutely, that particular person ensured that the war is going to end sooner rather than later, because if we had managed to retake Strong Cradle, then the war would drag on for a lot longer than it would have, which was our objective. But yeah, we weren't able to take that, and we lost a lot of resources in doing so. But we ran into a lot of problems with. It actually brings me on to something that I want to talk to you guys about, which is the queues and things like that, because it was purely down to the queue system that we couldn't get resources into the map during that operation. So it was it was a real nightmare for us to try and do anything. In the middle of it all, our Discord went down as well, so we had no communication at all. So it was a bit like D-Day, where paratroopers were landing all over the place and just linking up with random people. I had a couple of artillery guys with me just following me around because they didn't know what to do. But yeah, we pushed, and we made a good attempt on the town, but unfortunately we didn't get there. And I'm pleased. I'm actually really excited for the fact that the colonials are actually resisting again, because it's we actually have something to fight and get our teeth into, and actually have some good fights, especially with the changes, the badly needed changes that the devs have now implemented with tanks being easier to produce again. We're seeing those huge tank battles at the end of the war again, which I really, really like, and it's something that especially new players can get their teeth into. So yeah, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, and Mothman Kovac, feel free to interject here as well. So just to solidify the facts here, there was some talk that the colonials, having lost 5 wars previously and finally winning here in the 38th, breaking that streak, there was some talk that maybe, the Wardens, they didn't even try, they just kind of let the colonials win, or no, the colonials, they fought for it, and that was,
no,
82 was in force, it was attempt, yeah.
There was a lot of, if you don't mind me interjecting.
Yeah, of course.
I did have privy to information regarding actions of the war. There was a lot of coordination in Sigil for this particular war. A lot of cooperation, and it was really nice to see all these different clans actually cooperating instead of suggesting things and then not going ahead with it. That camaraderie and that companionship and creating operations together and actually suggesting and going ahead with plans. I was watching it real time, and it was interesting to just see it happen again. It's been a long time since I've seen that kind of coordination at that level. Probably far before this losing streak was snapped. So hopefully, the Legion can keep doing this, and we can actually see some more, well, not competitive, but fierce fighting between both factions. It's very great to see that both sides were basically tooth and nail throughout the whole thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm nobody that's not going to say that the colonials haven't done well this war. The colonials done an absolute phenomenal job, and there's a lot of talk of the colonials outnumbering us and stuff like that at certain points during the war. But I mean, I don't really put much stock in that. I agree with you. The colonials fought for it and they deserved the victory. I'm just glad that victory came, because after, like you say, after 5 wars, I'm sure that a lot of loyal colonial players were starting to get sick of losing constantly, and it was becoming more and more apparent as wars went on that we were fighting less and less experienced people.
Well, yeah, in a way, and I'm not saying everything went perfectly, therefore nothing should be changed, but in a way, this is kind of the sandbox at work, right? It took 5 colonial losses for this type of story to play out for people. Now, having said that, having put that approach out there, isn't probably important to note that the unhappiness and frustrations that came from those 5 losses didn't quite go into the fact that it went to a story or from a sandbox. More so that things needed to be changed, and therefore that's what the devs had to do. But hopefully in the future, once things have this kind of air of fairness, or I should say frustrations in terms of the mechanics are clamped down, hopefully when we see winning/losing streaks, we'll be less inclined to blame the game and more inclined to just have that fuel a story. Did that make sense?
You can only blame so much on game mechanics. Now, like by and large, the Wardens have been a lot more organised than Colonials. It's not just down to outnumbering our experience. It's just down to the pure and simple fact that over the past 10 or so wars, the Wardens have been a hell of a lot more coordinated than the Colonials. Now, it's taken the Colonials 5 wars to sort of figure out the fact that they need to be more coordinated, and that's what you said, Mothman, about them being more coordinated this one. It was good to see, and that's the type of thing that wins wars. It's not, I won't list the numerous things, but I'm sure you can think of some of yourself, that when you see vast amounts of manpower being wasted, then and when you get those people and you say to them, look guys, follow me, I'll show you what to do, blah blah blah, and take them to the front yourself, and then do something useful with those people rather than just leaving them to their own devices, then I think that's what's going to help the Colonials win more wars. And that's something that obviously we saw in the last war. Hopefully that they can keep it up and we can have a little, like you said, a little bit more fierce fighting. Because it's all every winning or losing, it's all good practice for us. 82 DK. So we need a lot more practice losing than we need winning at this point.
Yeah. Now, Avitus, you were talking about the Q system, the Q mechanics, and you were expressing some frustrations with. Or were you expressing some frustrations with it?
I was. Yes.
You were. Yes.
Frustration.
And because 82 DK is one of, if not the largest regiment out there, largest outfit. I can absolutely see where it's frustrating, where you have so many forces under your command, people waiting to get in, people essentially just people waiting to play the game, right? They've logged on, they've organized with you,
exactly.
But now they just can't get into the fight. Go ahead.
Being an officer, you sort of feel responsible for people having a good time in the game.
You absolutely are. That's yeah.
You know what I mean?
To an extent.
So when I'm waiting on the border with my squad of 20 guys, various people of 20 with 20 people on the border, waiting for supplies to get in, waiting for tanks to get in, blah blah blah. When people on the other side of the border are screaming for that support, it is like it's super frustrating when people on the other side are saying, we need, for instance, tank support, or we need shirts. We need them now, because if we don't get them now, we're going to lose this position. Mm-hmm. And when you lose that position down to that type of game mechanic, it is extremely frustrating, because that, like, for instance, I'm not going to. I would say that if it was another way, but we would have taken Stone Cradle if it wasn't for that mechanic. Mm-hmm. Like, if we'd have had the resources there in the beginning, and Q system allowed us to get into the map, we would have been able to throw the amount of resources that we actually had at the town. But in the end, we didn't get that because we were obviously waiting for a vast amount of people getting into the map.
So then, how other than simply saying, hey, devs, just expand the number of people that can get in, is there any other clever way you can think of to make it more? Because I'm assuming, so I don't have the exact mechanics in front of me. I'm not sure if any dev can even confirm this, but I'm assuming it's because there was an even number of people that reached to a point. Was it 70 versus 70 now?
I'm not particularly versed on this subject myself, but I believe there's some kind of hard cap.
Yeah, there is a hard cap. So, so I'm assuming both sides reached a point where it was even, at least in that region, right?
The problem was, we had Warden Navy attacking the map from another side. So there was another front on the map when we entered the map. So there's obviously it quickly filled up. Being the end of the war, there's not a lot of maps to fight on and things like that. So it's a very difficult problem to solve, and I wouldn't like to think that I was up to the one to find the solution.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because my next question was just going to be what could have been done in terms of
I mean, they're limited. I mean, I'm frustrated by it, but I understand why it happens. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they're limited by hardware. They're limited by whatever, servers and stuff like that, and they're limited of people that can be on it. It's just extremely frustrating in a game like Foxhole, where like the type of attack that we did yesterday, if it was allowed to be executed the way that we had hoped it would be, it would have gone very, very differently for us. And it was a lesson learned for us in a big way, because we need to think about maybe going in less populated areas next time.
Well,
because people often say that we don't coordinate with people, but when you have like maybe 50, 60 people or like in your operation, and then you go into a map that leaves space for 10 people. You know what I mean? So it like try and find a clan to coordinate with you with when you only have 10 spots with random people in the map as well. It's like an absolute nightmare to coordinate with anybody.
Well, it's a tale as old as time in any MMO, right? Server caps, and you just can't get in with your friends. So unless you got something else for us, say, hey, it is what it is. And hey, first come, first serve. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I want to briefly mention as well. I really, really want to see in the next few updates something that I've been hoping for a while is an improvement to naval combat, because naval combat is like it's limited in its use at the moment compared to what it was, and I think a big thing that they need to think about is putting making the playable map an island rather than a continent, like you see on the map where it stretches in both directions, because they need some more waterways in the map. There's literally one waterway that gets through the entire map as a river. That's completely fine, but what you need is oceans at the north and the south in order to make waterlogy and invasions a viable prospect again. I won't take up any more of your time, though. I know you've got a lot of calls to get through, guys. Absolute pleasure for having me. So thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, coming up next here on Zero Dark PressCorps is, according to the call queue, Lek. We've got Lek in the studio, or rather calling in the studio. Hello.
Yeah, this is literally calling in because I'm on my phone. Pretty tired, actually. Just had a lovely late night shower, That's also why I might sound a bit different. No, I'm not quite that perverse.
Okay. I was gonna get steamy for a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it was a steamy shower indeed. But yeah, thank you for having me on the show and all that. Long-time supporter, you might know. I've made many humble investments and sponsorship campaigns from the Lek Foundation to this special broadcasting center, as I support only the freest of biased media.
How do you mean? How do you mean?
What do you mean? I give donations to hear the best biased media. It's as simple as that.
He sounds so relaxed, but this is quite menacing.
Yes, that's because I have to keep my voice down.
All right. So just to be clear, the PressCorps is an unbiased news source, an unbiased news agency. We do not support any particular side, and we try
That's not what my agent told me when I got in contact. He said that you would prominently display all Lek content and memorabilia in an accentuated light as compared to others. Am I being told that my contract and sponsorships have all been for naught?
What have you sponsored? Hold on, what parts of this agency have you sponsored?
I have sponsored the absolute best of reporting from the what's his name? Sorry, I'm a bit bad with names,
So, Mari?
especially ones that I think that was it. Yeah, I think I got in contact with him a while back, and he had cleared up this whole thing, and he'd said, "Yeah, we'll display Lek-centered memorabilia on our next line of action figures." And yeah,
Wait, there are Lek action figures?
yeah, I
Is
was
it just a
told
train
that you.
crashing?
It could be, but I was told that. But anyway, let's get down to business. So,
This is unsettling. He sounds very different.
that's what happens when I have to be quiet and I'm talking on a phone. This isn't
And
my usual audio setup.
And this sounds like my dentist.
Well, Mr. Mothman, just open wide.
No.
I don't know
Okay.
I don't know what game he's playing.
I don't want to know what game he's playing. I'm scared.
I mean, I'm just here to talk about the war and all that, but you
Are
haven't
you?
asked
Are
any
you?
questions yet. I absolutely am,
You
because
came in here with a separate complaint, so I'm assuming this goes back to a spat you had with our colonial correspondent Maury Sharp, and
no, this was a separate incident.
it was a separate incident. Oh, okay.
No, this was a sponsorship deal. I'm not talking about the biased press issues we had in the past. Our dealings, well, they weren't so pleasant. I'm here to talk about the present and the war that has just wrapped up.
Okay.
I have a multitude of things to talk about regarding this, actually.
Mhm.
Shall we get started with this in-depth, interview?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Where are the questions? I thought you'd be asking the questions.
Usually people come in here with a topic of their own, but sure, what operations did you participate here in the 38th?
Ooh, that actually, I participated in exactly one, well, large-scale operation, that is, several other small ones, but if you are familiar with the operation known as Operation Kepler, that was the initial colonial push into Lynn of Mercy. I was involved in the taking of the town Crimson Gardens, as well as the dismantling of local fortifications after the city was taken, and the bombing of its central garrison supply. Um, it was all in all a very well executed offensive by the clan JFG in correspondence with myself and several other random players, along with dedicated Logi support from such names as Titanium Smoothie, someone named Jessica, I was told, as well as a few others.
And did this involve armor, or was this earlier?
It was a somewhat armored push. It was, if you recall the tech around this time, we had just unlocked half tracks. Now the half tracks were mostly a utility asset, as most of our deconstruction and demolition efforts were handled by our howitzer division, where we would bring up supply lines and shells to a nearby placed forward operating base in order for our slaves to assemble the ammunition on the front line for
Your
ready
what?
use.
Your what?
Our slaves. Slavery is not illegal. You realize this, correct?
No, I'm pretty sure it's illegal. Now, whether people enforce it or not, that's a whole different question, but it's pretty illegal.
It's
Well,
super illegal, Lek.
Illegal? Let's just call it morally dubious.
So
Shall
you
we say?
mean illegal?
I wouldn't say illegal. I'd say um
You know,
justifiably.
usually when people try to cover up war crimes, they don't try to, fancy up the effects, but they try to fancy up the title of the thing they were doing. So, do you still want to call it slavery?
Well, slavery. I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's not slavery. It was actually our dedicated workforce who came in and I had only said slaves because I was mistaken. I was thinking about another incident recently in which Warden Scum had taken the lives of many innocent colonial civilians and were forcing them to work in their labor mines. Um, However, that it was a Freudian slip, if you will.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Um,
So this is like quid pro quo slavery.
Yeah, somewhat.
So you agree? Okay. Anyway,
I'm not
continue.
sure.
Go ahead. So you were using the slaves.
We were not using slaves. That is blatantly false, actually. LecCorp only uses finely paid union members of the Colonial National Labor Force. We do not participate in any illegal activity, and I would call such insults defamatory and beyond reprehensible, Mr. Geoffrey. I will talk with the agency about your next week's subsidies and funding accordingly. That being said, I'd like to push on to another topic. You know that I myself am heavily a man of faith, and what better way to open up and talk about my faith than to give the readers a little bit of an example of what I mean. Now, I'd like to give an example from my life as to where my faith has benefited me. Um, so, as you all know, I am a great believer in the train god above, he who lights the path of the rails ahead. So forth, our lives are much like the lives of rails. They twist and turn with many different paths and approaches. However, there are many dead ends and treacherous and lecherous paths. But we are the stewards of this world, and it is our job to make sure that the path of the God above, the Almighty Train God, that all who live under his rule shall reach salvation, because it is known that the lack of motion in one's life can only be supplemented by the locomotion of the Train God.
Will the train god be visiting Earth anytime soon?
Yes, in fact, I'm conjuring many of my vast array of wealth from all of Lek Incorporated in order to try and help with his coming. You see, he requires much preparation. So, in the essence, I have formally sent out a request to buy the finest of hats as well as other clothing and apparel that will be necessary in the uh, summoning down. And in addition, I would like to also uh, raise the idea and suggestion to all that we all, in fact, go to the lords of the land known as Markethus and Matithus, as well as a man named Henrique of the East, and we should go and ask for their help in this grave, utmost importance. This absolute undertaking should require the help of all those who inhabit the world.
How will the trains return?
The trains return? I'm sorry, but you seem to believe that they have been here before. You say as if they left.
There are
In
trains.
fact, they will
There are
not
trains
return.
the same way there are planes, but they're not just currently
The
employed right
trains
now.
have never left. Saying that they will return
Oh, I
is
see.
in fact false, because the real trains are the ones we made along the way. Especially, shall I say, there was one that, if you paid attention this war, a good friend and fellow man of faith, Cronus Winter, actively participated in a surrogate train, where he used many idols and apothecaries in order to act as surrogates for the train god and deliver many supplies in his name to the front line. Our glorious assault forwards on Covian soil will not be stopped this day.
You mean Seavish soil?
Sievish, sorry, I'm unfamiliar with the tongue of the land. I myself am a foreigner from a distant land, and come with many great wealth.
So I got nothing, Mothman.
I picked a bad day to stop huffing glue.
You picked a bad day to what?
Hey, thanks for calling in, Lek. Thank you so much, everyone, ladies and gentlemen.
What?
Lek for joining us here. I have this note here from my lawyer. He's actually been knocking on the door here. The PressCorps does not and never has received funds from a LEC Incorporated and does not endorse the use of slave labor, forced labor, or indentured servitude. In fact, we may very well launch a special investigation into one of these LEC Incorporated. Gentlemen, either of you want to take that?
I guess I could take it. Legally speaking, indentured servitude is not allowed. It never was, and never will be again. So yeah, there's probably a lot of evidence on that.
Yeah, we'll talk
like
again.
My
go
brain
ahead.
was just leaking out of my ears.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. This is Rhodes Go Ever on, our next caller. Thanks for joining us here in Zero Dark.
Hello. Thank you for bringing me back.
Absolutely. Did you have any questions, comments, or concerns, not about LEC, but about the 38th conflict?
I don't think I could say any more about LEC. Oh, that was a
That was a trip.
That sure was.
That was a trip on the choo-choo train. All right.
Actually, more of a discussion, if that's all right.
Of course.
So, for those who turned in at last war's PressCorps radio broadcast, if you will, KFC was the guest of honor that day. And we ended on actually a really neat and I think a very important note that I kind of want to pick up on a little bit again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the note was on a bit of intelligence strategy being reliant on communication with, I guess, communication within your own faction, within different clans, with, if you're in a clan, with the public, air quote, so to say. So, kind of with that in mind, I want to talk specifically about logistics. I mean, big surprise for anybody who has actually played with me or talked with me. I'm a big logistics person.
Yeah, no, this is always in the conversation. Go right ahead.
Mm-hmm. So this past war, I should say right off the bat, this past war, like Avitus, I also saw a lot of great coordination with a lot of the clans going across each other. A lot of the public was very interested in working with whatever established Logi system was happening already. There's a lot of really good communication going on between the front line and the back line. And all in all, it was really, really good. I'll actually say as a statement, one of the things that helped me a lot and one of the things I started taking advantage of was using the map posts as a sort of Logi call-in system. So say I am supplying, I'm just going to pick someone, Endless Shore, something like that. If I'm supplying Endless Shore, I could put up a map post that says Logi, hey, what do you guys need? And they could say in order with a timestamp, we need shirts, we need ammo, we need...
Right, as has been going on for the past couple of wars since map posts were introduced.
I'm seeing it more and more now. I think that people are getting used to it, but also with this past war being mostly veterans, you see people really relying on it.
Right.
So that's kind of starting on a high note. With everything I've said so far, I want to focus on one of the things, at least one of the problems with Logi that's maybe not as good that we should be focusing on. And I say we, I'm not really going to specify which side of the war because I know it affects both sides, and that's partisan play within Logi and how it specifically affects Logi. The war effort in Logi seems to be a really smooth machine until partisans come in, and then a lot of things come to a grinding halt. Actually, do you have... I see you have the map thing going on at the moment.
Yes.
Is there any way you could change that to just reaching trail for a moment? I want to highlight
Yeah, I have an MP.
very
It's an
la-
MP4, but yeah, let me pull that one up.
Yeah, take your time. I wanted to focus on the very last town that was being taken over there, Elk. And while you're doing that, I'll get a little more specific. So partisans have always been insanely effective against Logi in a general sense. Just doing some quick like napkin math, it's about 50 to 80 BMATs per person, per partisan specifically to fully outfit them, and that includes like radio, wrench, SMG, whatever rounds you want, whatever little extra things and stuff. A group of 3 or 4 of those can shut down a Logi system entirely, and that's actually what happened with Elk at the very end.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that shouldn't be able to happen?
No, I wanted that's kind of a byproduct of the way the system is set up. I'm not saying that it's unbalanced. I'm saying it is so crazy effective that is a strategy that should be used more often, and I think it's a strategy that the combat and Logi people both need to come together and find a good counter for a good cost-effective, if not cost-effective, then at least like resource-effective, including like people or time.
Mm-hmm. So what were we talking about specifically? In terms of reaching trail, like talking about reprieve, right?
Elksford, actually, if you
Elksford.
could zoom in, if you could zoom in on the west side of the map.
Sure. Okay. So looking here, you got the wall. Is it a wall or a trench line? I think it's a trench line, right?
It's a trench line.
Yeah. Daffy's Farm, the Scar.
Mm-hmm. That approximate area. So for the last fight of the war, a lot of the pretty much the only logistical line into that area was from the Moors. It was coming in from the southwest. I think one really effective tactic that the colonials, or at least 4 of them or so, used was that they blocked off that road with partisans and a jeep, so they invested a little bit more into that partisan play. And they went in between those 2 roads to the southwest, just making sure that they were locked off. As they would pick off trucks, a truck being 100 BMATs plus whatever is going to be contained inside, standard partisan play, you use the resources that you capture against them. They started building up walls, tank traps, foxholes, etc.
Mm-hmm. Here's
the question I want to pose to you guys, and I wanted to bring up this specific map so we could talk in a little more specifics in this scenario. How do you, say as a losing faction when you are a bit tight on resources and need to get really efficient with what little you have, how do you counter partisan play like that?
This is the perspective of the colonials, right?
You could take it from either perspective. In this case, it was the colonials that were on the offensive. They were the partisan party. So
right, and then the Wardens they held Elksford, but they were getting cut off. But they were getting raided from colonials from the southwest.
Correct. Yes.
And what's the destination? Because I'm assuming the Moors was still in Warden hands at the time, right?
Yes, it was. The Moors was in Warden hands. Sorry, it was a couple weird. And Elksford was Warden. It was falling to the colonial side. It was the last town, so a lot of the logistics effort was focused on that.
Makes sense. Yeah, so then that road in between from Elksford straight into the Moors, the most direct path, that was the one getting raided.
Exactly, yes.
How would you approach it? Well, my first guess is you got to just divert all attention. Clear it up. Maybe not all attention, but devote a sizable force to just hold the area and get a construction crew. And even if this sacrifices things on the front line, because you can't hold everything at once, because like you said, the power of those four commandos are just so strong in terms of just destroying most critical orders. So get a force of 10, and keep them close to some engineers. Get a CV out there. Form a ring around or patrols, get it going, and then just start building up those foxhole lines in a sizable distance away from the roads and just build it straight into the moors. Easier said than done, of course. But that
Very
would
much.
be my first most direct thing. It's like, hey, if this is happening right now, just get a team together, get some BMATs, not drop all orders, but delay orders now, because if we don't stop the bleeding, this is just going to be another source of blood loss from what's happening all over the front. So I'm saying, my personal call here from the studio, very comfortable studio where nothing is of stress. I would say that. I don't know, Kovac. What would be your approach, if similar or different?
It'd be very similar to that.
Yeah, just the most direct way of going about it. Mothman, did you have
Yeah.
anything? Oh yeah, go ahead, Kovac.
I got nothing to say. I'm just agreeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mothman.
Probably divert a couple of scouts to seek out where the partisans are at exactly. From there, probably send a 3 to 4 man unit to just run some S&D in the region. Just open up the road a bit, get some Logi trucks in. Meanwhile, I'd probably tell the guys that are providing logistics to gather up some troops, put them in the back with the truck that has the supplies, and then when they get hit, they get a nasty surprise full of infantry.
Yeah, I think this is all this is coming down to teams, response teams, as well as patrols. I've been seeing a lot of talk, not to divert completely, but this tie-in. There has been some talk about how the map is too large, and for the most part, I do agree. But there is a beauty to having things be so open. Maybe not so open, but more open than you think, just because it allows for such freedom of movement and opportunity as opposed to being instant meat grinder. So then with that, you can kind of set up patrols in and around certain critical points, and then having that opportunity to patrol, not just to respond to something, is so cool in my eyes. That especially when something is actually happening, it's not like someone 3 regions in the back line patrolling nothing. No, this is important. This is a thing. That person needs to patrol, and it doesn't seem as proactive, but in this instance, that's kind of what needs to happen. At least that's what I would think of it.
It's interesting because that starts getting into the idea of a QRF, or a quick response force.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen that in wars past, but I haven't really seen that in the past couple wars. I haven't seen any combat unit really be popping up and asking where we needed, and they kind of work with minimal supplies. It seems like if one is combat, they pick a front line and they stay with it. If they're Logi, they pick that front line and they stay with it. And most people are pretty static as far as their fronts. With the new the new spawn system, you'd think there would be a bit more mobility with players in that way.
Mm-hmm. There's another, there are other ways of going about it. Some people have in the chat have written in saying, buff the truck, maybe even give it a weapon after a certain period of time, as some sort of self-defense. I don't know how to feel about that. The truck has already been buffed quite a few times over its lifetime. Maybe it's time for another, but at the same time, yeah, go ahead.
Rolling down the windows, just shooting.
It's got a speed buff. They got a recent speed buff when it's not loaded.
Right.
But I do believe the concept of having at least a passenger side machine gun that just rotates 360 would be pretty interesting.
It would
or
be.
I'll even go so far as to suggest have it rotate 180 degrees.
Sure.
Just to balance.
What would you think about a late game vehicle that fills the role of the truck, or a truck that could be outfitted with a gun on top for defense?
Just don't start talking about gun trucks because you'll start making me more.
No, you're absolutely right. That is a.
I will say this. Maybe while it's a very direct answer to the power of partisan play, it may not necessarily be. Or it may cause some problems down the line, because we also don't want to take away from having to build up supply lines, or having to build up, or maybe providing the opportunity for people to patrol things. So yeah, obviously we would want to discuss this in ways so that the truck couldn't be used offensively, only in self-defense. So I don't know. It's an interesting experiment, maybe one that's worth considering, or the one that's worth trying.
I agree. It is a bit of a very blunt solution, and certainly not in the it's fun to think about, but it wouldn't really be in the flavor of the rest of the game. I'm actually going to pick on one of the responses from Golden Tiger here in chat. Here in chat, one reason partisans are so effective is because trucks are like paper, and that's absolutely true. Going back to what I was saying in the beginning, partisans are so crazy cost effective. For 60 to 80 BMATs per partisan, you could immediately take down a 100 BMAT truck, plus the person inside, plus whatever, and the time that you have the road shut down. It's crazy effective. And I guess to answer my own question at the beginning, how do you effectively counter partisans is to make it, at least in my opinion, to make it not as cost effective for them to hit that logistics line. Whether that's to constantly find them out and keep attacking them and deny them that spot with patrols, or just to respond that fast, or whether to escort your logistics shipments.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways of going about it. You could immediately going to knee-jerk reaction to nothing, but you could say nerf the truck so it doesn't even have the capacity to hold that many things. So blunting it, immediate everyone is gonna say no to that. Gonna say no to that. You could, yeah, I guess you could buff the truck some more. You know, it's funny to think about because I've been around since trucks have been not just paper but paper mache, where you could blow on it, you know, just like that, and goodbye. I don't know. There's a lot of things you can go about doing it. No, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, go ahead.
I really liked one thing that Mothman said actually, and Mothman, when you responded, the first thing you said would be to send a team to scout out. And I think, as somebody who has played Logi, as soon as I hear that there are partisans on a road, of course, one of the first things they're doing is taking out watchtowers. So the team that they are attacking is blind. Well, now Logi is also blind, and we don't know if they're still in that spot, if they've moved out, if they're still there at all. So I think scouting and intel is critical and very important to countering partisans.
So now, now we're talking about process. So no, we're not necessarily talking player process. We're not talking about things mechanically that we can buff, change, or nerf. But we're talking about what players should be doing, you know, tactics-wise, to counter this threat.
Yeah, I'd like to pivot into that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, one thing that I would like to see, and this is, I don't exactly have I don't have a clan tag or anything, so I don't have any group that I could just pull for anything. But a lot of partisan groups use jeeps to get around, LEVs. I would like to see that to counter them as well more often, but rarely do you actually see a lot of jeeps being used on the defensive that way.
Right.
We saw that a lot in the days where QRFs were more present, I guess. I guess what it kind of comes down to is not just a QRF force. If there isn't a dedicated QRF force, then at least a combat or logistic-minded people that is okay with peeling away from the front lines to take 15 minutes to clear logistics route and then go back to what they were doing.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, patrolling is a cool thing in concept, and there's certainly a subsection of people who would enjoy that. And I have seen operations be like, hey, Northern Patrol or Deadlands Northern Patrol, and then literally all they're doing is just very casual group of 3 to 4 guys, just kind of walking around like, yeah, nothing around here. How are you doing over there? Yeah, it's good over here, and that is cool in itself. But it is a very niche thing because it's not nowhere near as exciting. In fact, it might even be probably even more boring than what many people perceive logistics to be, because so then you fall into the trap of, well, right, but now you need even more people essentially invested in logistics. If patrols were an extension of logistics, now you need even more people who kind of have this weird way of entertaining themselves, of essentially just kind of walking around and just kind of watching and do things. But again, there is a beauty to that. I'm going back and forth here, but that may attract a certain subsection of people because in many ways people might look at Foxhole and be like, well, who on earth would actually have fun being a trucker or like mining things. It's the same kind of question. Like, who looks at Euro Truck Simulator and thinks that's going to be a successful game? But here we are. So maybe there is something to be said about patrolling. I don't know. I'm going back and forth on it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm sorry, were you gonna kind of?
I gotta go to sleep.
Yes.
That's exactly what I expected.
Logi's so boring. It's putting even.
It put him to sleep. Yes.
You know what? Speaking of ways to keep patrolling and ways to keep logistics interesting. I'm going to field a question out there to people out there in the chat, people out there as well as in the YouTube comments. How would you feel about 24/7 radio set in the Foxhole universe? How would you feel about that? Keep logistics interesting. Maybe keep patrols. This is a total kind of a total left turn from what you were talking about, but yeah. Think it might be open to that.
Okay, bye-bye.
See ya.
I think it would be interesting. The question with the radio. So, I guess the closest thing we have to a radio right now would be the Foxhole War Map website online, or the bot that we use. Like that's
right.
not really 24. Well, that's literally 24 times a day, but it's not really like constant. If we want to talk about like a radio where people are actually like verbally responding to what's going on, that's you kind of get into the territory of what is operational security or OPSEC, what is IntelSec. So if you have somebody who's reporting, one person happens to catch the bare glimpse of a partisan attack that's incoming, and they report it on the radio broadcast before the team that is defending that is even able to see it, just because the radio broadcast sees all. Is that an inherent advantage to the defender or not? And that's a tough question. I don't know if I know enough about the game.
I would say the key point to any military campaign, victory or defeat, is communication and how you properly use it. Anybody can say anything on chat or on a radio or on Discord when they're working together, but it's what you do with that information that makes it matter. So I don't think it would really make much of a difference if people aren't acting on it.
And in a way, the map posts kind of do that better because it's more like a posting, right?
That is true, and it does have a timer, so you could see partisans here. Oh, this was yesterday, and you could downvote.
Yeah. And people are talking about it right now in the chat, and I think I talked about it just a couple calls ago. Where yes, it'd be nice to have some sort of modular kind of operation, not operation, but changing the operation chat into something more modular, so that you could call into a stockpile, you could call into an outpost, call into a truck. Easier said than done, of course, technically speaking, but how nice that would be in terms of kind of just a little more tactile than just kind of a global chat.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
No, you're good.
I have had, as a logistics coordinator, I've had dreams of that idea where there's enough people to say, okay, there are too many people in this operation. We need to split this into scrapping teams and drivers, or like scrappers, drivers, and the manufacturing people back home. But
and I realize, I realize that operations do that already. Like for instance, the Winter Legion Logistics. Look at all of Cronus's streams. That's absolutely what he does. He gets people together in an operation, but it centralizes around the operation. How nice would it be if while I'm totally pushing this, by the way, but that's just whatever. Your left hand is doing WASD for the truck, and then your right hand is using clicking around with a radio to call in. Hey, abandoned ward, I'm on the way. Hey, outpost over here. I thought I saw partisans stuff over here. Can you send a patrol out this way? All while never stopping with the truck.
I'm gonna show my age here slightly.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love doing that because when I used to play a game PlanetSide 2, we used TeamSpeak, and pretty much nobody uses TeamSpeak these days. That's the age I'm showing. But we would have Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta squads in different channels the squad leaders, and I'm pretty sure you and I have had this conversation.
Yes, we have.
For those who haven't used TeamSpeak, if you have a designated squad leader in TeamSpeak, you could set it up to have one hotkey to talk to your squad, and then another hotkey in a completely different voice channel. Be able to talk to just the leader of that voice channel.
Channel commander.
Yes, that's what it was called, channel commander, and that was extremely useful. So you had a squad chat and a leadership chat, and you could expand that out to like battalions and regiments and whatever.
Planetside 2 had that as well. There was a command chat where only commanders could talk to each other on it.
Yes, that was out at the start, and I think it only ever got effective. I don't even know if it's still effectively used. There's a lot of trouble.
It was never effectively used. It always turned into an ego trip, every which way, constantly to this day, and it always will be because that's just the nature of it. Just like global chat is here in Foxhole, but just the channel alone, that spacing alone, did provide for a good level of communication. We could go on for forever, but I think this call's gone on just a little bit too long. But Rhodes, thank you so much. Please come up with more of these. I absolutely do. I am with you that organization systems and communication systems are the key to keeping people and streamlining that as much as possible around the mechanics of the game is the key to making putting Foxhole over the top.
Absolutely agreed. Can I leave on one final note?
Yeah.
Completely. This is actually going to throw it back to Avitus again with something that he said. Kind of paraphrasing here. This is on a completely different topic too, with the fact that the Wardens lost this war after so many victories in a row with a win streak. I love the story of Foxhole in that way. That's been told over the past couple wars, where this is a colonial comeback in this way. And personally, as somebody who's gone through war games and war strategy with different RTSs, with different war games and such, the best way that one can improve yourself is with some sort of strong motivator, whether that comes internally or in this case, like externally. A good opponent is the strongest motivator to self-improvement. And I really hope for anyone on the Warden side, leader or just a grunt soldier fighting, don't take a loss as anything personal. Don't take it as anything like demoralizing or anything. Let it be a strong motivator to get better, to figure out what you did wrong, and then come back hitting it harder than ever.
Yep,
that's all.
A
Thank
sandbox
you guys for having me.
at works. Yes, thank you so much, Rhodes. Appreciate it. All right, coming up next here is Trekker. 1ARC's Trekker. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for joining us here on Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you, Trekker?
I'm good. Hello, welcome.
Hello. Yes, welcome. Advanced Recon Commandos. Did I get that right?
No. That's Warden. That's a Warden class.
Oh, wait, what? Oh, that's right. This is 1ARC. What does 1ARC stand for?
The 1st Army Ranger Corps for the Colonials.
Army Ranger Corps. I love it. So there's 1ARC for the Colonials, and then there's ARC for the Wardens. Is that right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
That is right. Actually, they are our Nemesis clan.
I was about to say that's immediate. Jeez, come on. That's a rivalry. That's immediate rivalry.
Yes.
Blood feud. That's awesome.
I'm imagining the Spider-Man meme where he's pointing at it.
Yeah. Someone make that meme actually right now. Yeah, someone pointing at ARC or 1ARC.
Yeah, the beam had been alive for like 2 months now, and we did have a few contact with the ARC officers, and we did before on War 38 Fight Club, and this war, yesterday we also did a Fight Club at Warbreaker.
That's awesome. Yeah, is that what you want to talk to us about? The fight clubs, this strange phenomenon that happens after every conflict here.
Usually no, but right now I do like to share about how we operated as a clan during War 38 and how did we contribute in the war effort on how we managed to win for this round.
Take us through 1ARC's actions.
During the first deployment, when we had most of our members gather up on the Discord server, and did some quiet planning before the start of the war. We were gathering only Our only sole purpose was to actually gather people to join up on the clan. I had every member spawn in on the colonial home region, form up a rank file where we stand beside each other, forming up and encouraging new players and randoms to join us in our Discord server, which was pretty effective because we had like 10 to 15 people joined up. And later on, we did a push operation on Lockbar when we were the first of the colonial army to capture Tomb of the first region in game, and started push on Mercy's Wish. And we did manage to capture Tomb of the First after a few hours in game on War 38. Then later on, after a day, we managed to capture Mercy's Wish. And after some days later, I think one of my officers, it was Lord Cars, that posted here on PressCorps
Mm-hmm.
that we were planning on taking Prairie Bazaar a few days later. It was more of a well prepared op because we had like a lot of containers and a lot of equipment prepared. It was mostly a hit and run operation, but we did not knew that it would be a successful op because a lot of people participated. We rush built a fob and then of Mercy. We took out Fort Duncan and started encircling Prairie Bazaar, and sooner or later, the town fell to colonial hands.
How many people were involved in One Arc's operations?
In most operations, if it's a big push operation and it happens to be a successful one, I usually get a people from 15 to 30 people in an op chat and having commanders on different op chats in game.
Hmm. Wow. So, and then
So
how many total? How many total in One Arc, more or less? Do you know?
right now, our active, right the most active day we had a lot of members in the clan is like having 25 in a server.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's a force to be reckoned with.
It was day one, but some of days the numbers died down because due to gaming fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
and some users were no longer interested in playing because of the so on how much Foxhole becomes a burden rather becoming fun to play with.
Right. Tell me, did you or what? Sorry, what was your favorite operation part of the operation here for One Arc in Lin of Mercy? Was it the taking of Prairie Bazaar or was it something else?
It was the taking of Prairie Bazaar, but it was because my debut operation and having a lot of people involved and having a number of Narandoms and JGF and CRG participating also in one CMD providing infantry support on the siege. But one of my favorite solo operations I did was on Fort Viper before the war ended. Before Viper's pit was taken.
Yeah. Can you describe that for us?
So basically, what happened during the siege of Fort Viper was there was a lot of colonials trying to besiege Fort Viper from the north. The wardens blew up the bridge. There was constant Howie fire coming from the inside and outside of the fort, and a lot of colonials were dying. I did had one crazy and crazy idea that actually worked that took the fort.
One crazy who? I'm sorry.
One crazy idea that worked that managed to take down Fort Viper,
What was
which was
that?
pretty much a very well, practically, I saw a crate and I found a container crate and I drove it up to the front, placed it near the fortified wall. The walls like you see in castles.
Right.
I
Right.
placed
Right.
it up near the garrison house, watching down the fort. And I had KOP, built some sandbags, and it was like a siege tower. And colonials were just swarming in, and people like saying it was like Dota war tactics.
I was about to say that's like straight out of Mountain Blade, where you have to climb the ladder or climb the rampart
Yes,
and go
everyone
over
was
the
said
top.
it was a funny
Oh,
idea.
did someone yell "fix bayonets"?
Actually, I was the first one in because it was my idea. Because it was my
That's good.
idea,
That's
I
owning up
deserve to
to
be
it.
the first one. Yeah, I basically had nothing on me. I only drove up with the crane, having nothing in my inventory. I managed to get up on the first sandbag and the second one and onto the container and into the parapet of the wall and run in straight toward the fort and managed to melee one warden to death. After that, being killed by a garrison house. It sucks because I clicked on the wrong respawn button. I clicked on the return home button rather than the spawn at the garrison base.
Yeah, they really need to separate those. Like put those on opposite ends of the screen.
The worst part, when I got back into Viper Pit, the the fort has already fallen.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
but
I really hope someone, if anyone part of that siege has footage of that, of apparently someone using as rampart to go over the wall. I'm sorry. Sorry. Can you describe again the mechanics for me? So you used a container, like a shipping container.
I used a shipping container. I placed it near the parapet of the wall.
Parapet of the wall. And
That
this
is
is
near.
this is a player built. Is this a player built wall, or is this a
No,
pre-made wall?
Pre-made wall of the game.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a castle. Fort Viper is a castle
Fort
in
Viper.
which
Okay.
case you can see that wardens can climb on top of the walls like a medieval castle setting.
Mhm.
So so I did the mountain blade tactic, placing a siege tower. I had KOP with a light tank covering my crane, and a lot of infantry was assisting me. And they were all like, "What the fuck are you driving a crane to the front?" Everyone was against the idea at first, but as soon as they saw I deployed the crane, the container on the wall, beside in front of the wall, and had KOP builders build sandbags, tier 1 and tier 2, right beside each other, making a ladder on top of the container, and everyone just started swarming the place.
Was there shouting? There had to have been shouting.
Yes, everyone was typing while the builders were making the walls. Oh no, it's becoming total war Attila, total war tactics
That's what I was
on the
thinking
blade.
of too.
And
Oh
there
man,
were also
please, someone have
there were
footage of
also
that.
wardens on top of the wall, shooting on the colonials down on the ground like a fucking siege. I was laughing the entire time because I saw it was a fucking medieval tactic
This is like
in
Lord of the Rings. This is like
World War
King's
II
Landing,
game.
right?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Unfortunately, I forgot to grab another container to make it two.
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's okay. The fact that it was possible, we'll see if that's even a thing next patch or next update. But
Hopefully, but on the war setup right now, I think it's not possible because Viper Pit is almost half the on the other side of the world on the war map
okay.
next war.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But
Hopefully,
the mechanics
I
of
do
it, see if
like
it's
to
even
besiege
possible.
Fort Viper again with a container.
Sounds like fun. Sounds like a blast. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I don't think anything's going to beat that. What a trekker of one arc. Thank you so much for calling in. That was awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one. All right, coming up next here on Zero Dark PressCorps is Slntreaper. Slntreaper. What? The one threw me off. Slntreaper, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Welcome back. Am I saying that right? No.
Just call me Reaper.
Reaper. Sorry. Slntreaper, or just Reaper.
Just call me Reaper.
Just call you Reaper. Yep. Just call your Reaper. Okay. Reaper, did you have any questions, comments, or concerns here about the 38th conflict, or any war stories, or hopes about the 39th? What you got for us here?
Well, I think as you guys mentioned before inside of PressCorps, War 38 was kind of a monumental turnaround for the colonial faction. That's the way a lot of, and I think that's one way to see it. Of course, there's people who kind of see it as more like, we finally broke the Warden's siege, stuff like that. But I think that there are a lot more people, especially in Sigil, who kind of see it as not just us breaking the Warden win streak, but also as like a start of a new beginning for the colonial. So, as someone who kind of is very involved in Sigil, and his clan's very involved in Sigil as well.
Oh, what clan is what clan is that?
I'm the 27th, by the way.
27th. Okay.
Yeah, very much not really around, but as a clan that's kind of very involved in Sigil and not really involved much else, to be honest. I'd like to say that Sigil has gotten a lot of collaboration tools, and arguably that's kind of one reason why we almost won the war, I'd say.
Right. Yeah. No, I was talking about it with Wolfie. Shameless plug. Interview with Wolfie. PressCorps Studio interviews available on our YouTube. But yeah, I was worried because we were talking about this for about 90 minutes. I don't remember how long that interview lasted. I was worried. He was putting so much effort, so much gusto into it, so much energy into it. I was afraid maybe it was gonna just kind of peter out without anything really coming of it. But apparently, according to a few people from these calls, it has come to fruition, and it was a good fight up to the north, and Sigil pulled through. If it's a question of maybe there's a question of how much effect did Sigil have? How many people? Please give us the inside story. How many people were involved in Sigil operations in terms of leadership?
Jeez, that's difficult.
Sure, just
well,
a rough estimate. 10 people?
If I take a look at the commander chat,
10 commanders.
we got
Yeah.
let me.
Give us a rough estimate. You don't have to reveal anything for us here live, but can you give us like how many people? How many commanders are in Sigil, and how many people participated or used Sigil during the 38th conflict?
Well, officially, I think this is kind of public knowledge.
Right.
Because any warden who gets into our Discord and goes through, you just literally have to join the Discord and you can kind of see. Okay,
Of course,
this
yeah.
is,
So this isn't really spoiling anything.
So this is very public information, by the way. We've got officially around 12 commanders, and basically every single one of them took part in the operation, plus some other admins who kind of went in and stepped in as impromptu commanders, like Hetz, for example, and Lurkus. So basically, we've used up every single one of the commanders, plus extra admins, plus any active soldiers who just wanted to help out. So, geez, I'd say in total, maybe around 20 people participated in planning like operations, which is kind of huge if you think about it.
Yeah. Each one, I would assume, would be some sort of leader who then that leadership kind of trickles down to other people, not just to people in their outfits, people in their groups, but also people just the randoms who get swept up in the ensuing operations.
Oh yeah.
That's
I
great.
won't really talk. Yeah, I won't really talk about on how we kind of sweep up the randoms through Sigil or through in-game. But it's kind of easy to tell if you can figure it out on your own, of course. But I'd say, yeah, like this very top-down command structure, which we've traditionally avoided because of concerns over dictatorships or concerns over, not having effective leaders. Those fears are pretty much gone now. I'm very happy to say that Sigil over this past war has looked at itself, reformed, and really just begun to kick out everything that's bad and replace it with effective leadership and effective community.
Yeah, if the reports are true, then it seems to have come through. Now the real test here, the real question is, can it be consistent? Maybe not necessarily every war, because sometimes fatigue can set in. But can Sigil remain as an institution among the colonials over a long period of time here? Will we see it in War 39, or will we see it in War 50? Will we see it in War 75, or will it give way to something else? That's the question.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize just how old Sigil is at this point. This is the
a
sixth
very
generation
long,
of colonial.
storied, and complicated history, from what I've gathered.
Yeah, this is the sixth generation. We've been around since the Winter War of 2018. So we survived for 15 wars at this point, about more than 15.
Right.
I don't foresee us breaking up in the next 15. That's all I can.
That's good. Well, we'll see if the positivity continues to trickle through. Hopefully, can weather some defeats as well if they come to fruition. But yeah, no, Reaper, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Did you have anything else?
Not really. I just kind of wanted to talk about Sigil and how I feel like it was an effective institution this war. Hopefully, it will be effective in the future. And if I can encourage any of you people who are neutrals out there or new players who are kind of just thinking, what side should I join? I highly encourage the colonial side because we have the communication tools available to literally any colonial that decides to join the war. There's a very simple verification system that we use. It's not complicated. It doesn't require you to, have any kind of insider ties or anything like that. So if you are, any new player looking to join the game, or any, rando or neutral who's trying to figure out what side to play on during War 39, I highly recommend the Colonials. Feel free to add me on Discord at Slntreaper. ID is 4653, or just message me or ping me through FOD. I'm sure I'll see it. If you want to know any more information about Sigil, or any of the other admins, I guess works too. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, thank you. Have a good one. Mothman, do you know the name of the current warden equivalent to Sigil? If there is one right now?
I don't.
Okay, because I think everyone just kind of defaults to 82 DK. Just because they have so many people, but I'm sure there's got to be something. I know there was the Warden Axis and then the Warden Alliance for the longest time, but then that kind of petered out, as often these things do, no matter the side. But maybe someone can inform us of that. Maybe one will be created in the ensuing months, but we'll see. I don't know. Well, in the meantime, if there is still a couple of callers out there, up next is, he already called in, RobotSpark. Hey, RobotSpark, PressCorps' very own RobotSpark. Thank you for joining in. Thanks for taking part of the conversation. Robot, how are you doing? What do you got for us here in the past 38th conflict?
Well, I feel like I should let you know, if you are curious about the Warden Alliance, I wrote as part of the Eternal Truth, which is the now mostly inactive Warden Press, a special issue focused entirely on the Warden Alliance, how it came to be, how it fell, and what. If you want, I'll eventually put that in the PressCorps Discord for all to see, but I figured if that's the talk of the topic right now, I should just mention. But anyway, in other matters, I just thought I'd come along, and I really want to make sure that everyone who's listening knows what we're doing now, because recently
the Warden Alliance is still around.
No, it's not. But
okay.
I just think that if anyone wants to follow in the footsteps of the Warden Alliance, then the special issue I wrote and getting in contact with the people who were involved, unless they want to be left alone. But that seems to be, in my opinion, the best way to pursue this. At least the first step, at least, learning from your predecessor.
Right. Well, go ahead. Yeah, tell us what was the story. What is the story of the Warden Alliance / Warden Axis?
Well, the main takeaway is that it took a long time before anything of real import started to happen. What I remember talking from NNF AT Golden, if I believe that's his name is. If you read the thing, you'll know what his name is. But he's the guy who started the main Warden Alliance. It has its starts from even before World Conquest, and it was only very recently, before the Jade Cove incident, that it started to pick up any sort of traction, I believe. So that way, it makes sense that if you want to get something started, don't be disheartened by the time it takes for things to get rolling. Like, for instance, right now I'm working on something a little unrelated. It's a lore wiki for the Foxhole, just lore pieces everywhere. So they've got different categories. So if you want to say, I want to find what corpses there are in the game, and what lore pieces are related to corpses, you can just go to the corpses category and search through there. It uses the same.
This is a lore kind of categorization.
Yeah, it's also useful because I want to verify every single piece of lore. For example, there are some lore pieces in the Steam community guide that aren't there for anymore. For example, the Wellsford sign, since that used to be outside the Spire in Weathered Expanse, but there is no more Spire in Weathered Expanse, so it's been removed from the game.
Right.
So having a verification system where players go around lore hunting for even already existing lore, take a screenshot of the lore where it is, take a screenshot of the text on the lore, and then send me the screenshots and the map coordinates and map it's on. But then I can actually put it into a separate page where it's access sources and write an article based on that. And then once we've got all the main lore pieces down, then you can do things like, you'll have like speculation pages where people will come together and say, oh, if the breaching of the bulwark was then X and Y. So people use it to come up with theories that aren't canon but are plausible. And we can also allow it to do with like community things. Like, for example, I can definitely see a PressCorps page being added there as a non-canon thing. Although it would be nice to have it as canon, but it would be nice to have it as
PressCorps canon. We've got PressCorps canon here, so don't you worry.
That reminds me. Referencing the lore repository that you're creating, it reminds me that I'm still working on this what's it called? Kind of a book relating to the geopolitics of the Mercy Valley itself.
Oh, really? Well, I'll definitely have to read that, and I'll probably make that, if I can figure out how, make that a featured article of some sort.
Yeah, there are multiple efforts that are currently long-standing to document all of the lore in Foxhole. Most notably, African Dave, who his guide was actually pinned in the lore channel on the Foxhole official Discord. You can find it right now in the lore channel. Look at the pins, and you'll see African Dave's kind of lore big repository is there. And but I know I've tried personally to kind of have this lore discovery timeline done. And Robot, I'm so glad you're taking up that mantle, bringing that with you. We'll see. It can be a little frustrating sometimes to get lore in a straight line, just because the devs want to keep it so close to their chest, and I completely understand why. But even for the things that should be out there, they're not out there cleanly. When they really should be, in terms of things that have been revealed and things that have been found. So it's not even just a matter of spoiling the hunt for people. It's making things clean and neat so that people already know what's been found.
Yeah, that
which is what you're doing.
Yeah, of course. It's also just so we know, like, we can keep tabs on lore, and I also want it to eventually be used as, like, for people who want to search for new lore. Like, for example, let's say I started this during the dev branch before War 38, but I haven't gotten too far. I've started at the very, very top of Stone, and what I've done is I've systematically swept through row by row looking for any lore pieces. I'm still in the third row, so I haven't gotten very far at all, but hopefully I just want to make sure that we found every single lore nugget we can find in this current version of the game. Because what I've found is, like, I'm working on a radio drama for the Cadmium Stage of the Skies, and I've also been simultaneously working on this lore. And what I found searching through these lore pieces is that there are many things that I was absolutely not aware of when I was writing the radio drama, and some of it has actually even impacted how it's come out. And I can't name any specifics; nothing's coming to mind. But you know what I mean? If that was easily accessible for everyone, not just in the Steam Guide, which it's very good, and I actually have gotten in contact with African Dave, and last I've heard of him, he's going on a lore hunt to help verify some of the things that are already in the wiki. But yeah, if that information was accessible and easily indexed into different categories, like notes by region, by person, like if you want to find out everything about Callahan, about Maro, Thea Maro, Silas Maro, the swords of Maro as they appear in the lore, and the hands of Callahan as they appear in the lore, you can search by category. I feel like having a very easy categorized system is important. If you want, I can figure out how many articles there are on the thing. Just give me a quick sec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. While he does that, I just want to thank you, African Dave, and anyone else who partakes in the lore for picking up the slack, or not to say slack as if they're lazy, but to pick up the pieces where the devs haven't had time to really devote, which is to the lore and to kind of like what Hayden does in terms of providing statistics and statistical information and historical information. Thank you guys for doing that as well, because it's very helpful, because the devs are so busy they don't have time to devote to that. But this is history, these are numbers, this is lore that could be lost to time, and but it's not. It's not. It should be stuff the devs are doing, but just doesn't have the time because there are bigger, more important things, and I get it. But thank you.
Alright, I've got the lore wiki up now. I also want to say special thanks to Hayden for actually hosting this website. It was a bit of a rocky start to get all the different plugins you needed working, but now that it's all smooth sailing, it's very, very, very reliable, and I must say it really does make me feel proud to have a
It all comes back to Hayden.
But yeah, so currently we have 23 pages. One of those is of lore no longer in the game, the Wellsford sign. 3 of those are of different, not lore pieces, like it's the DeWitt Mark III, the H5 hatchet, and the armored car for the Colonials. The rest, that makes 19 pages that are actual lore, and of those pages, only 2 have been verified in the current version of the game. That leaves 17 lore pieces for you lore hunters to go out and find. And that's only, I've only done a few regions right now. I haven't finished going through the Steam guide and have put everything in that guide onto the lore. So if you want, after I'm done speaking, I might hang around in this chat just as I'm PressCorps, and I might have something to say for someone else who wants to call it. But once I'm done speaking for the most part, I'm going to post some links in general text in the PressCorps Discord where you can actually go to the lore wiki and check it out for yourself and see what pages are there and if they're good or not. If they're good or not, if you have criticism, that is, just send a message to me on Discord. It's on the main page of the bloody lore wiki anyway. So and yeah, you can just click on my name in the studio and you should be able to message me there. You'll be able to see what pages are done and what pages need in-game verification. I recommend going through the verification ones and then trying to look for them. If you want, you can try and contact around the community where they are. For example, the Trench Bath. Recently I did a pass of Mooring County, looking for all the lore pieces there. I was specifically looking for the Trench Bath, so I thought, alright, yeah, let's look in the trenches. I managed to find the Whedon's Row radio transcript, which is, no, that's the one about the invasion of Whedon's Row and how it's intense. And I also found the Nick Nevin paratrooper note, which, before Stone Cradle, was the first sign of air forces existing in the game. And it's very, very important. So I've managed to verify those 2, but I couldn't find the Trench Bath, but luckily, I got in contact with African Dave, and he said it isn't quite in the trenches. So I feel like if you ask around the community, you'll probably find someone who knows a bit more about where it might be, so you're not just searching blindly.
I have been waiting for someone in the Foxhole official Discord lore chat to do this, essentially, saying like, hey, if here is a neat list of things that have been found and the order in which they've been found, and just, my goodness, you have no idea, because there's so much miscommunication, so many things lost to time, so much, so many things that, Matt is only one developer, Clapfoot developer Matt is only one person, and he can only do so much. So to have you guys pick up the slack for him is so great, and to finally put this in a neat timeline that we can kind of hunt, the true scavenger hunt that it's always been, but making it a clean game that we can put in the lore chat. So great, thank you.
No problem. Although I must admit,
speaking of lore, do any of the devs know about this?
No, it's fairly small, but
I'm assuming once it grows into something more presentable, we can make it. It can be possibly something more official. But we'll see how the development goes. But I'm just glad someone's doing it, because I've tried a few times on the wiki and it did not pick up.
Yeah, the current stage process is add everything from the Steam guide into the wiki. That's the first step, and simultaneously with all of these steps, I should mention, is we'll have people verifying those. Second step is to pretty up the front page and set a custom logo and make sure that all of the categories in that are accessible. Step 3 is to set up speculation pages and theorizing pages and areas so that people who want to, because I remember the real reason I wanted to do this was because there were heaps and heaps of brilliant discussions in the lore channel in the Foxhole official Discord, but since Discord is such a bad system for archiving conversations like that, they've all been lost to time, really, unless you were in them or know of them. So that means that people who, like, we might have a discussion about trains at one point, but then we might end up repeating ourselves with different people because they weren't informed.
I've been if you have any suggestions for any
My-
long form suggestions, put it on the subreddit, put it somewhere where it's recorded. Don't put it on Discord.
My suggestion was that these sort of conversations perhaps could be archived as, because in Wikipedia each article has a discussion page. I was thinking we could have our own dedicated and separate discussion pages where people could talk like that. It won't be as free form as Discord because of how Media Wiki, which is what this is hosted on, works. Or no, Wikimedia. That's how it works. But it would still be very good because even for decades, you can still see what people have written on.
Yeah, just a standard, just a regular forum format as opposed to a running text chat like a live chat that's far more palatable for actual discussion.
Yeah, of course, exactly, and you can always edit it at any time. I am a bit wary of people who are going to ruin things, but so far it's small enough and niche enough that I don't think we'll run into that sort of problem.
Well, that's the battle of any wiki.
Yeah, I was going to say the Foxhole community are pretty good in that regard, but then I remember someone tried to ruin the Fight Club laugh distance phase, so luckily we got it back up and running. But anyway, my point is, if you want to help out with this thing, please contact me, and please check out the links I'm about to post in general text. It would be hugely helpful to get this thing off and running. Because I just realized that I was talking about how this was supposed to relate back to anyone who wants to form a Warden Alliance. The point I want to make is I've started this months ago, and only now is it starting to get into a state where I can finally start telling people about it, and people will get on board with it. So that's why my point is that it will take time, but the fruits of your labor will be worth it. That's all I have to say. I'm just going to post the links now, and you can move on to the next caller.
Put them in the Twitch chat. No, stay here with us. I think we're just about done. Potato Hans, welcome back.
Showed up.
That's great. We're actually just about to close out in a little bit, but do you gentlemen have anything for us here? You're just saying hello.
I'm just saying hello.
On MCL. Is that a thing?
No. Hans. Yes. Okay. So Hans, what team were you on for the FCL?
I was playing on STD.
It was STD versus S&P, right?
No. STD versus Talks.
Talks. Okay. And you guys got stomped.
Yeah, you're real bad. It was fun though. I had a lot of fun. At the beginning, STD, a lot of people didn't show up. CAW didn't show up. I was the sole sort of. I'm not even part of CAW anymore. But I was the sole quote unquote representative of CAW that was there. Your man didn't show up. We had to scrounge members. We had to we got to get some people there on. We got Tintin from 128th Artillery. We got a couple of people.
Mm-hmm.
For a while we were led by, I don't know, was it Akira or Coco? The French guy. That's all I know. I think it was Coco.
Sure.
And he sort of gave us pointers for the mid portion of the match, but by then we were already losing. I guess that's my summary of FCL. It was really fun though. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. For those who aren't aware, Hans and Boris here are kind of semi-retired members of the PressCorps. That's correct.
For a second there, I thought you were gonna say semi-retarded.
How much of a difference?
At this stage, it really is.
I mean, yeah, me and Boris already make jokes about how we can do
I'm
jack
just
shit.
popping in to say hi. I'm still alive.
Oh, good.
Barely.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
we could go on for a while. And I know we might, but we do have to close out the show. We did have one more person here. One more person we need to talk to. One Arc's Free Lord Cars. Thank you for calling in. We do know that you are the lawyer, the legal representative for LEC and LEC Incorporated. Now, what do you have to respond to the allegations of use of slave labor out on the battlefield? You being the legal counsel for LEC, what do you have to say to that? Sir, I would like to remind you, you are live on the air, and you are in front. You are in front of a press panel. How do you care to respond?
Have we technical difficulties? What is
All right,
it?
no. This is hard-hitting journalism. We need to all get through to him. So, everyone, what needs to happen? Here's what needs to happen. Everyone here, everyone on the press, come up with a question. Come up with a question now involving this scandal, involving the use of slave labor. Think of it in your head. And then on 3, we're all going to ask the same hard-hitting question at the same time. And that way we will break through and we will get to the bottom of this conspiracy, because that's what we do as journalists. All right, ready? Everyone have a question?
All right.
Yeah, Everyone have any questions?
Let's do it.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so why did you think that sleeping with Yak was a good idea?